welcome to yet another edition of Time Pass for the New Indian Express. I have with me Hussain Zaidi, storyteller extraordinaire of Mumbai police officers, Mumbai gangsters, the Mumbai underbelly as a whole. Knows it better than most people, has played a part in several writings on Mumbai, from Vikram Chandra's Sacred Games to Misha Glennie's Mak Mafia, one of my all-time favorites a couple of years ago when it came out as a series. Welcome, Hussain.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I have one of my favorite stars, Imran Hashmi, whom I've liked ever since he burst onto the screen in Footpath, playing a gangster. What else? And he's gone on to play a number of fascinating roles, always sort of on the edge of, good, badness, and you never quite know what to expect from Imran in any role, which is, I think, what makes him such an exciting and unpredictable actor. And also very, very articulate in how he, talks about the process of acting as well, without making too much of a big deal of it. So, welcome, Imran. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Kaveree. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Great. And, you two know each other. So I'll begin by talking about, I think, one of the first encounters that you had, right? Where, Hussain, you were interviewing Imran when he played a crime reporter in Rush. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You want to talk a little about that experience?
I think first I'll ask Imran to start and then I'll take over.
Sure. Imran, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, it was actually one of the first meetings with Hussain Bhai. And it was a film way back, I think, in 2009.
Yeah.
And before the release, we felt we could do something very interesting with the space of media and just have a different peg to the way we were promoting the film. So we had Hussain Bhai come over and interview me live. And I was playing a journalist in the film. I was playing a news anchor. So it was a very, very interesting conversation. Obviously, it's almost like 10, 11 years back. I don't really know the details. I don't remember the details.
Yeah.
But I think that's when, a certain friendship, a certain relationship started off from there with Hussain Bhai. And through the years, we've grown closer. In 2014 was when I think there was, his bit on Kiss of Life when he came and met me in my makeup van. And I remember I'd come back from Toronto, my son had fallen ill.
Right.
And he nudged me to kind of write this book.
Oh.
It was under the Blue Salt imprint, and he made me meet his protege, Bilal. So that was a wonderful experience, very cathartic.
Right.
And that's been one of those fine landmark experiences of mine, which was led by him, kind of fathered by him, that book. And, I always say all the films on one side and that one book, that was one very, very kind of cathartic, very emotional ride for me. So thanks to him.
Yeah, it was very moving to read as well, Imran. I think I read it twice, and I remember interviewing you immediately after it was released. And it was really written so simply but so movingly that I think it reached out to a lot of parents. Even if their children hadn't fallen ill, it made them sort of reaffirm their commitment to parenting. So I think that is really lovely. Hussain, you want to talk about what prompted you to sort of push Imran into telling his own story?
Whenever I saw his movies, I realized that the intensity of the character came across very well on the screen.
Right.
And as a journalist, we've always been trained to notice beyond the obvious, whatever is not apparent. So I thought the man has a very sensitive heart and he has gone through a huge trauma in the past. If only I can convince him to tell his story, which he was reluctant initially, but I thought it could be inspiring for so many parents who go through this kind of trial and tribulation. It will be really helpful. And you will not believe that, to my surprise, the way Imran narrated the whole story, you cannot believe that he is an actor and not a storyteller or not a scriptwriter. The way he started right in the Operation Theatre, and then the whole pains, and then his own life backstory about how his career kind of graph moved towards such huge success. And the end part was a surprising thing. It brought tears to my eyes, though I was so connected to the book with every chapter and paragraph. The way it described that how Ayan participated in the race, the final race. A child who has just recovered from this kind of surgery and trauma and illness participates in the race and wins. And Imran concluded that race in such a fantastic way that what matters is to be part of the race, not essentially you have to always win it. Fantastic morale. So I just fell in love with his storytelling techniques, and as we said that the friendship has already begun with Rush, his movie about being a crime journalist.
Great. Yes, I do remember that end. It was really very moving. Imran, I want to ask you whether you talked at length to Hussain when you did Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, because you were playing a young Dawood. How much of an input did you acquire from Hussain's writings, from speaking to people like him and around him during that era? Because that's one of your iconic roles.
Well, I didn't actually speak to him personally at that point of time, but obviously there are a lot of influences from his writing that had preceded that film at that point of time. Maybe Black Friday. That was, I think that had a kind of profound impact on the way I kind of play the character. At the same time, the film was a bit of a departure from, the certain realism and grittiness that Hussain Bhai brings to his characters in his books. I think there was a certain school in, like how gangsters have been portrayed. It could be the RGB, Ram Kumar Verma school. It was more real, more gritty. Here we were trying to be more flamboyant, a bit larger than life.
It was almost glamorous.
Glamorous and also a little filmy. So I think I could get away with a lot more stuff than other actors would in this scenario. But yes, his writings were tremendous input, because I just wanted to know where this man came from, just to understand that. I mean, my first memories of Dawood were, in school when the Mumbai riots happened. And I remember I was like, 8, 9 years old back then. And you couldn't really comprehend what was happening at that point of time when I was a child. And someone who would be responsible for something like that was kind of unnerving. It was something that I had to tap back to that experience as a child. So all these influences helped, I think, in Once Upon a Time Mumbai. And what was very different about the film was that it changed the key of the way people saw gangster films. There was, Kashyap's, viewpoint in Black Friday that was taken from his book, which was fantastic. But this was a completely different ballgame. It kind of tapped into the Bachchan era, 70s, the dialogue bazi, the flashy cars, the bell bottoms, brought in the two beautiful love stories. But yes, but he's the man that kind of, I guess in a way influenced everyone as far as writing goes for their films, because he has documented everything. And the source material is something you can trust. At the same time, his books bring in a certain entertainment quotient. I think it's a good blend of these two things, because it's very difficult to first get things factual right, document them, at the same time give them a nice feel as far as story goes, and make that work. So yeah, in that sense, he's been a huge input.
Yeah, as you said, he's in fact perhaps the first information report for every crime that happens in Mumbai. He's the author of that. Hussain, just a little about Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, because we are also actually, it's been 10 years since that movie. It was quite iconic in the way it also portrayed two eras, the ending of the Haji Mastan era and the beginning of Dawood's era. Not everything about it was accurate though, right?
No, it was a very romanticized version of gangsters, actually. So it was very far from reality. But the main central characters of Haji Mastan and Daud, you were playing the protagonist.
Right.
So where I have always said that Imran, I mean, when I met him, I told him that his Daud was by far the best so far in whichever movies Daud has been portrayed.
Right.
So the certain seething rebelliousness that you see in the character, the rakishness, how the man is willing to just explode at the slightest moment, but he has a very unforgiving nature. He always carries that vindictiveness in him. These are the qualities which is not very easy for someone to portray, especially if the actor has been a romantic hero who has been known for his serial kissing image. He thinks about gangsters so much alive, and you tend to believe that this is how Daud may be or would be, or the way he is romancing that girl, and the way he, takes revenge on his enemies. And I think Imran was simply iconic in that movie.
Right.
Well, actually, this was a huge thing when I was planning on signing on with this for this project to play the role, and a lot of people told me that you shouldn't touch it with a barge pole because the character is so dark. There was a film before that where I did play a grey character, but again there was like kind of a lover boy mold that was placed, which was Jannat. And that did phenomenally well. I mean, I've been hated for characters before in the past, like a character like Gangster, the film Gangster. A lot of women hated me for that character. I mean,
although you're a good guy, but they
the good guy, the romantic guy, who suddenly in the end you find it's a complete 360-degree turnaround, and you come to know that he's the undercover cop who had kind of planned everything to get to the gangster. So, a lot of people told me not to do the film, but then I got a sense of how Milan and Rajat were trying to pitch this film. It was colorful, it was, kind of filmy. We had to portray it in a very understated kind of way, both Ajay and me, because the kind of dialogues that were written by Rajat, they were so flowery and so over the top, and fantastic dialogues, by the way.
I know,
if we had overdone it, if we had gone a decibel higher than what was expected, I think every scene would have fallen flat. And it was a good way of kind of changing a certain image of mine. Intimacy and me have always gone. We were strange bedfellows for the longest time, 10 years before that. But I was very happy that Milan and Ekta and the entire team were willing to take this hit with me.
Right. And what was going through your mind when you were playing the young Dawood? Was there ever a moment where you said, this, I can't do this. It's too much. It's too dark.
Oh, every day. I mean, the drama that was around that film, the drama that was on screen and the drama that was off screen, it somewhere syncs together. I mean, that film got shelved twice.
Okay.
It was just after Jannat, I heard the script. Rajat and Milan came to my house and I gave it the okay. But then there was 6 months of writing and pre-production in which it was shelved twice. There were some production issues, and then we shot the first schedule. Then again, we heard that probably the film might be shelved. But then finally it got made. And when it got made, when we were airborne with the promos, this was, I think, a month before we were going to release the film. The makers realized that there was a big problem in the second half. And we had to shoot almost 20% of the film. And
what was the problem?
The makers, I didn't see the film. This was obviously, we were told, Ekta picked up the phone, Miller picked up the phone and told us that, you guys have to stop shooting, doing whatever you're doing, and you have to give us dates because we're airborne and we have to kind of piece these things together. Apparently, the second half was a little bit dull and drab. It wasn't working. And there's always that curse that, the dreaded second half of a Hindi film. I mean, you can get away with the first half, but you can't get away with an average second half. It has to satiate the audience. It has to fulfill the audience. They have to come out feeling entertained. And that was not happening. So we shot almost 15-20%. Everyone's dates were taken. Ajay, Kangana, me, Prachi. And we shot it. I don't know how we did it, but we shot it really fast. And I remember seeing the trial show and I picked up the phone and told Ekta. She was scared. She didn't want to see the film. And she wanted to know everyone's reaction. I was like, Ekta, you have a big hit on your hands. Because I saw the film and we were all kind of detached in a way because it was almost a year and a half of production.
Right.
They were closer. They had lost kind of objectivity. But when we saw it, we were very pleased.
Yeah. And I think the box office and critical appreciation, both.
Yeah.
You got both for it. Hussain, I wanted to ask you, the connection between Bollywood and the mafia has been quite intense over the years. There's always been this fascination of people within the industry for gangsters and gangsters for people within the industry. There have been so many cases. What is it? What is so compelling about that attraction?
See, actually, for some reason, actually, there are several of them, but why exactly Bollywood is so obsessed with bhais or mafia is a very strange story.
Yeah.
Initially, because mafia funded Bollywood movies and there was no organized funding for the movies. So there was so much of Benami funding that happened for movies. So they were besotted and beholden with bhais at that time because they were accountable to them for all those movie making business. Then Dubai was one of the main capitals where all the film stars used to descend for various kinds of shows and other things. Now, if you go to Dubai and Dawood are like synonymous. You have to go and pay obeisance to Dawood. So I've written their names. I've written how some top film personalities always went to Dawood in Dubai. And they took the entire star cast, including heroines, and they all have to be part of the party which Dawood was throwing for them.
Right.
So this fascination, this connection, this dependence on each other, this liking for each other kind of became so integral to the existence of each other that they became inseparable after a point of time. It was not until this film Chori Chori Chupke Chupke that they could cut the umbilical cord from the mafia.
Right. What happened with Chori Chori Chupke Chupke? I know, of course, of Bharat Shah and the whole case. But what was it about it that broke?
It was a big banner movie. It was a big banner movie having a top line star cast.
Salman Khan and Preeti.
Yeah. And it came, apparently the producer was a little known guy. Yeah. And they did not know that he was fronting for actually Chota Shakil.
Yeah.
And when things came out due to wiretap surveillance and all those conversations, that crime branch realized that actually this was being funded by mafia and all these stars were threatened to act in this movie. They had got threat calls to be part of this movie and they can't refuse this guy, Nazim Rizvi. And that's how the whole story was unearthed. And then Mumbai Crime Branch started summoning stars. They were questioned for their antecedents. Their links were verified. They were checked. They were interrogated. Statements were taken. So such a fear kind of was enforced in the film industry after that they decided it's better safe than to be sorry. And then they started cutting off all the ties and links with the mafia.
Right. Has that also seen a change in the way movies have been plotted and movies are now portraying the gangster?
No, I see that gangster is still a hero. We always see that gangster is romanticized, glamorized, and is put on a pedestal. And they always give him a reason for becoming a criminal, and they always justify his taking to crime. So I don't understand it why he should be supported or glorified the way all those movies do. Maybe they want to pander to the ego of the stars. Please, Imran, don't feel bad about what I'm saying here. But those are the compulsions that a film producer and studio has to go through when they are taking a star as a gangster.
It also also when you're playing to the gallery and you're playing to the audience.
Yeah.
I think there is a kind of tried and tested blueprint.
Yeah.
And this is how the industry has been following. It's been going for the longest time. When there's a certain safety net, and you have seen a certain kind of film work.
Yeah.
Then you don't want to tinker around much with the parts of it. So I think there is justification. There is a bit of glorification and probably also redemption somewhere down the film's storyline. I think that is what makes the film slightly more popular.
Right.
I think directors and writers feel that if you don't do these things, it won't be very palatable for the audience and it won't be a money spinner. So that's why there's a certain frame in which you have to make these films to make them more viable for the box office.
For instance, your role in Avarapan of a gangster, there's a reason for why he's turned into a gangster.
Yes.
So are you saying that that's always at the back of the filmmaker's mind, that there has to be a reason?
I think, you have to make, at least this has been in the past, things are slowly changing. I'm sure with OTT coming on the bandwagon, things will change in a huge way. But I think it's to make the audience slightly more, make the characters a little more sympathetic, for the audience to be invested in someone, to empathize with a certain character. You have to give that part of the story. Otherwise, they don't really buy in. They don't really vouch for their hero, so to speak.
Yeah.
And like Hussain sir also said that, you won't get too many leading men play those kind of characters. I'm one of the few, I think, actors that would actually do something like that. I mean, if you would take a grey character to most of the actors, 90% of them, they would all say no. Because they all want to play the hero that comes and saves the day. Yeah. That, squeaky clean. You can't fault the hero in any way. Or there's some kind of redemption in the story. So I think it's just part of the entire ecosystem.
No, I remember a famous incident. I mean, once I went to a director friend of mine who was adapting my book in a movie. I told him that, why are you making the hero look like a good Samaritan? He's a killer. For God's sake, he's a bloodthirsty, violent man. And you are making a Robin Hood, a good Samaritan philanthropist type? He said, Hussain, you don't know. You have written a book. My 50 crore is riding on this. If you show him like a Dracula devil guy, my film will bomb and flop.
Yeah.
Please let me do. I know what I'm doing here.
Right.
Because of which, the experience I had, in recent times, if you've seen in a show like Narcos, or you've seen any of Martin Scorsese's films, they don't shy away from actually showing that character is all black.
Exactly.
He does demonic things, Pablo Escobar. There was no way of kind of making him, there's no justification for anything. But through the show, weirdly, I was kind of vouching for him, but I was like, okay, he's doing all these bad things. But then the writers have kind of instilled it very smartly, the kind of family values that the character has. There's some ambition and drive that we all connect to. And in that way, you kind of make that character slightly more sympathetic. You kind of empathize with the character in a way, on his predicament, that he is doing what he is doing because he's kind of, product of his environment, and this is all that he knows. But he's a bad guy. You would want him to die in the end. But at the same time, deep down inside somewhere, you're like, okay, we know where he's coming from. And you kind of like him too.
Right.
So we haven't really tapped that just as yet with our films. I just hope that changes.